So just before the break, I asked for two icons of writing who have said having too many books was evil. Call right up if you think you know which two I'm thinking of. Nick in Manhattan. Nick, you're on WNYC.
Hi. I'm going to say Kurt Vonnegut Jr. and John le Carre.
No, but this is fun. So let's go to Christopher in New Jersey. Hi.
Hi, this is Christopher. I actually didn't have an answer. I just wanted to weigh in real quick and just say that I think keeping too many books is just terrible. Every time I read a book, I give it away to somebody else, and hopefully they pass
it on. You're a one-man internet. Kevin in Westbury, you're on WNYC.
Okay, it's Evan in Westbury. I would guess Mark Twain is one.
Sorry. So it's time to give it away, Clay.
All right. The two I quoted in the book, and I should say it's a sentiment that's been expressed more than twice. The first one, funnily enough, was Martin Luther, who was one of the original users of the printing press as a source of social upheaval driving the Protestant Reformation. And his complaint was that too many people were driven to write books just to hear themselves talk or for fame. And then in the 1800s, in the middle of the 1800s, Edgar Allan Poe, who said, now that we have all of these books, we hardly know what to think anymore. You have to lumber through all of them just to get a handful of facts.
And they both use the word evil from the quotes that are in your book.
Exactly right.
So why compare what those two men thought about books once upon a time to where we are at in the current moment with the Internet?
Well, so one of the core observations of Cognitive Surplus of the book is that abundance breaks more things than scarcity, right? When a society has something scarce, it knows how to manage it, it treats it as a precious resource. When that same thing becomes abundant, it freaks people out. And not just in a practical way, like what do we do with abundant printing as the printing press created. It actually takes on a moral dimension. When something goes from being scarce to being abundant, the people who are used to the scarce system almost always speak in moralizing terms, as Poe and as Martin Luther did. So what we're seeing now with the Internet is the same explosion of abundant production, abundant forms, people writing only to hear themselves heard, as Luther said, people writing and sort of putting out so much material that you have to wade through, as Poe complained about. It's happening again. And again, the abundance being created by the Internet is being discussed not in practical terms, what do we as a society do about it, but often in the same kinds of moral terms that Poe and Luther used.
So you argue that the Internet has fundamentally restored, or is in the process of restoring, reading and writing to their previous places in our society.
Well, it's not exactly their previous places, which is to say the kind of reading and writing people are doing now is plainly different from the kind of reading and writing.
But to a more central place.
But absolutely. There is this vision out there right now being promulgated by the cadre of hand-wringers that makes it seem as if we were all reading each other Proust by candlelight right up until the day YouTube launched. And they don't tell the story of the effect of television on reading, right? It was Sanford and Son that did in Proust, not the Internet. What the Internet does actually is to bring reading and writing back as a central activity, albeit one practiced in very different ways than it was practiced in the first half of the 20th century.
So in other words, we were wasting all this time that we have because of the cognitive surplus, because of the modern work world, at least in the West, in the industrialized world. We were wasting it as a culture in general, watching television, being passive, staring at a tube. And the Internet, if it's replacing television as the dominant media activity, it's making us smarter, not dumber, because it's interactive. It's reading and writing.
Right. And the cognitive surplus, the idea of a cognitive surplus, the sort of networked free time and talents of the world, has really two pieces. One is the thing you were talking about, the free time that started to grow, started to become abundant as we moved from being an agrarian to being an industrial and then a post-industrial society. We've got over 1 trillion hours a year in the educated world of this free time. But without a medium that rewarded that free time for any kind of active use, the free time was just something we had to use up, and we mostly used it up watching television. What the Internet does isn't to create the Internet isn't creating new forms. What it's doing is it's giving us an opportunity to work with each other, right? It's human motivation driving this thing, not the technology. And it's giving us the opportunity to get together and do things together, even if it's as simple as just cracking each other up. That's still a creative rather than a passive act.
Critics will say the Internet is a galaxy wide but an inch deep. So we may be reading and writing, but our attention span is about 200 words. So forget about Proust or anything.
Well, so first of all, to the issue of distraction and attention span, that it seems to me is the very real problem, right? In exactly the same way, in the 16 and 1700s, society confronted the idea that if we were going to take advantage of the printing press, society was going to have to spend an unbelievable amount of resources teaching children to read. We're pretty clearly going to have to do that around questions of distraction.